what's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know what it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by episode 2D Rocks or Rock and Metal Thrive, where we're interviewing all the emerging upcoming bands in the scene today. But today, oh my lord, we've got a band that's coming back after 7 years, and they released their brand new single, Intercorrupted, on August 30th. There are so many people that are happy that this band is now back in the foray, where their newest album is coming out on March 19th, 2021. This conversation is absolutely incredible because we talked not only about the record and the mindset behind the record, but we also talked about more of a production style of things and why so many different styles of music can blend together so well. So please welcome Sahaj from the band Ra. Are you guys ready? Because this is an absolutely incredible conversation. So let's go. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast, when I found out that I had a chance to interview this guy, I kind of lost it a little bit because I saw that this band finally came back after like 7 years, and they're releasing an album at the beginning of 2021, well, March 2021, but it's something where a lot of people were getting super psyched about it, and I'm so glad to be talking about it with the guy himself. So please welcome Sahaj from the band Ra. So Sahaj, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast, and also welcome back.
Thank you. This is awesome. So let me ask you the first question, so why chord progression? What's the name of why that?
It was something where I just was trying to figure out something that kind of had a relation to music, but it wasn't just super duper straight. It was kind of straightforward-ish, but not too straightforward. And I just thought chord progression because, it just was the first thing that came to mind. I decided to roll with it. And as time has gone on, it just kind of fit as it went on because we're talking music, but then it always progresses into something else at the end in terms of the conversation. So I've had conversations where all of a sudden we talk about, everything that's going on with COVID, everything that went on with how people connect with live shows. I mean, it goes all over the place. I have conversations about people being big YouTube stars in Sweden before PewDiePie became a thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that. That's cool. It's clever.
I'll put it this way. There was something where I wanted to come up with something, came up with it, and then when it came to like putting a logo for it, I'm like, I want to put a guitar in there because it's chord progression, gotta be a guitar.
Yeah.
But for myself, I can't play the guitar. So I want to kind of have some weird kind of fun with it. So that's why I made it a Guitar Hero controller.
Very nice. I like it. It's cool, dude. It covers the ground. It's a nice one.
Well, thank you. That's actually the first time someone's actually asked me that question on the podcast. And I'm a little thrown off by it. I didn't ask the first question, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. This is awesome.
Well, I could ask you more questions if you want me to.
We can go either way with this kind of stuff. I mean, we can bounce questions back and forth, get that type of conversation going, and just have fun with it.
Absolutely. So yeah, so it's Friday. Are we doing this as of the time we're doing it, or is this going to air later? It's going to air later, right?
This is going to air later because I always record these, and then right now, in terms of when we're recording this, I've got a couple that have already been recorded and scheduled to be released over the next like 1 to 2 weeks. So this will come out a little bit afterwards, but not too far afterwards because
it's all cool. I'm just saying, it's a Friday night. I'm hanging out with you. Means that my social life is pretty terrible. Just kidding. But no, this is cool for a Friday night. I'm hanging out. I'm at home. Lots going on in the world. So it's a crazy evening to be chatting. I got a band here also at my studio. So everything has been like a long week. So this is a fun thing to do.
Yeah, because the Friday we're shooting this is the Friday after the United States presidential election. And as we're shooting this right now, there still is no definitive winner. So one thing that I've been kind of seeing is especially after, right when the election was happening on that Tuesday, it was like everyone was kind of getting freaked out by it. Everyone was getting very anxious about it. And one of my big things was whenever I get kind of in that mode, I always just turn to music. And that always is like this, like the thing where like anxiety just kind of goes away at some point. Because you can really get lost in the music, and you can get lost in the feelings and the memories that you have associated with the music in a positive way. So doing something
I do music for a living, so I'm always producing and writing with bands. So sometimes the last thing I want to do when I'm stressed out is listen to music. But it's what's funny is I'm glad I have a band here from Florida, and I've been working with them all week, and it's been the perfect distraction. Like literally the day's over and then I get the crazy recap of what happened for the day instead of like getting nonstop 24-hour access to whatever's going on.
And it's a really nice way to go about it too, because I kind of get the same thing where it's I'm working during the day, then all of a sudden after my full-time job, go to the gym and just kind of literally put the earbuds in, full blast. Everything is drowned except me and whatever weights I'm trying to lift at that moment, or trying to bike for an hour and just try and basically sweat out my whole entire body at that point. And then when it's done, come back and start working on all this stuff. And then by the time it's like, 11:30 at night and I'm ready to go to bed, just quickly open my phone and just see what happened during the day. And it's just like, oh, a bunch of stuff happened. Okay, whatever. Time to go to sleep,
Yeah.
because I'm not really worried too much about it due to the fact that I'm not sucked into it as I'm seeing a lot of people kind of get sucked into it. It's like, if you're sucked into it, I get it. However, there's times you can pull back a little bit and just find a way to alleviate some of that stress, alleviate some of that anxiety that's going on with everything that's going on around this time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if we get into it at all, it's all very funny because to me, the the big trick has been that the people who are actually in control, the big corporations and all of that stuff that actually run the world, those people get a pass every 4 years. No one's ever really worried about them the way that they should be. And we get micro focused on these like little tribal wars that we have going on with each other. And we forget that like giant pharmaceutical companies are running the earth, but it is what it is. People have to be engaged in the process, otherwise it becomes meaningless. But it's still a big deal, and we all have to try better to be a little bit more, objective on both sides.
Very, very much so. When it comes to just talking about this stuff as well, it's when you're talking about it, you have to be objective about it. And when you're talking with people with different opinions, one thing I've always kind of been on that is, if you have a different opinion with someone, that's a-okay. If you're going to try and talk with someone about it, you're trying to share those opinions, give the opinion, also give your context behind why, so that that person understands why you form that opinion, and then listen to them do the exact same thing, and don't try and force them to have your opinion. If they're going to change their mind, let them naturally do it themselves, but keep that conversation open and flowing, because that's when those shared ideas really come together and you can basically compromise on a lot of stuff, not just in terms of talking with like friends or family or other people, but in terms of overall just government as well.
Well, weirdly, this segues exactly into our new single because the song is called Intercorrupted. And ultimately, it's really almost exactly this subject that the song is written about. The song is sort of a in the moment examination of the psychology it takes in order to be as tribal as we've become. So like I always say that we need to redefine the baseline of what we think humanity is. We constantly think humanity is this great, wonderful, good intentioned thing. And we don't do a lot of good things as a species. So, one of the ways we can benefit and evolve moving forward is to understand how our own flaws or our own corruption actually creates the people that we want to point at and cause blame with. So if we're sitting here and I'm like, oh, those people over there are wrong, I'm doing it and I'm creating them by doing that. I'm literally giving them the fire to be who they are by me being sort of in denial of my own fucked upness. Can we curse on this?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, good. So my own super duper fucked upness is, the first thing I have to wrestle with. So we're in that regard, we're intercorrupted. We're corrupted together. And even though intercorrupted is a fake word, it really defines for me the connecting rod that we all have to share first before we can actually be objective and understand someone else's perspective and actually listen to what they're saying without a mountain of preconceived notions and judgments. So that's what the whole song is about. I mean, I keep telling people listen to the song and they like it because it's cool or whatever it is, but I keep telling people the last line of the chorus, and I think the last line of the chorus sums up the whole song. And the last line of the chorus is, "It's too dark for the world to see the light between you and me." And that's sort of the whole crux of this album. The album is going to be about sort of like overcoming our natural destructive instincts and finding ways of being passionate and compassionate about evolving as a species, evolving our sense of self, and evolving the ability to connect with each other on a much deeper level than we're allowed to now, because even talking to you, the only thing we have in common right now is this device, is this thing that is in between us, regardless of how hard we try. So like, even our family now, we interact through our phones, through our, we're so separated that we've sort of started to redefine intimacy as text messages.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have the capacity. Human beings just don't have the capacity to process the amount of information we get now. Like, we get a million updates versus we get notifications from our Facebook page, notifications from Instagram, notifications from Twitter, go on TikTok and watch crazy girls dancing, go on this. We're literally like, people make that joke. You remember in that movie Up, where the dog, every time he's talking, he goes, squirrel, like,
Yeah.
That's literally all of us all the time now. And we're not emotionally or even intellectually equipped to deal with that kind of constant influx of information. And that doesn't even sort of address things like being judged, right? Because like, you post a picture online of you thinking you look cool, and somebody's like, dude, when did that fat guy show up? You know what I mean? Like, and you're crushed, like your whole world is crushed. I'm personally, I'm older now, I'm fat as fuck, and I'm just like sitting here sort of like, I don't want to see myself on the internet, but now it's part of my job again as the raw guy. But we all suffer through this whole sort of like thing where we're presenting the best versions of ourselves. We're disappointed when people don't see the version of ourselves that we want to see. And then, of course, we only see the best versions of everyone else. So then they become way cooler than we are. So that's sort of like, I hate to get on into this whole seminar thing, but that's what the whole album's going to be about. Like, I've not thought about anything else for the last 2 or 3 years. And the whole record, in various ways, is sort of about the psychology and the sadness that we're all sharing, basically because social media is completely unregulated and out of control, and it only feeds us what we want to see, and it only thinks that we exist on a very superficial plane. And unfortunately, for most of us, we indulge it, and we indulge it incessantly. I am literally attached to my phone all day long, and I'm like, what am I, a 13-year-old girl? What is going on? I can't even put it down for 5 seconds. But it's literally become my conduit for living, and that's crazy to me.
It really is. And when it comes down to it, one thing I like that you're talking about with this whole entire album is you're really looking at the mindset in between people, between one person and another, and mindset between a person and themselves, along with social media as well, instead of talking about just what's going on today at face value. Because I'm going to say this, there's a good amount of artists out there right now, when they're releasing music, they're talking about the events that are happening, or they're talking about concepts that are happening. And don't get me wrong, there's some music that's coming out of that's absolutely amazing. And one example is what Bring Me the Horizon just put out with Post-Human Survival Horror. I absolutely love the album. I love everything they kind of talked about in there. But what you're doing with this is you're going in deeper. You're not going into that whole entire face value thing. You're going really into the mindset behind why these things are today, and why we're so kind of connected, but also disconnected at the same time as well. Because using what you were talking about with redefining intimacy, due to the fact that when we're talking with people, because you and I, we're talking right now, and the only thing that connecting us is basically an internet connection and a couple of webcams. That's it. What ended up happening today, actually within my family, was one of my great uncles passed away today, unfortunately due to COVID, and I had no idea about it. And
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. It was something where it happens, but the guy was, I think he's the last surviving brother of the four of them. He was 90 years old. Still, he was
Right.
he was still healthy, but still, it's a little bit of a shock because, it just kind of happened out of nowhere. But when it came to notifying everybody, the only person that was really told, that when my dad found out, the only person in our family that was told in person was me. And the only reason that was because I was over at my parents' house today for a little bit. And when he found out, like, if I'm over there, he's going to tell me face to face. But then all of a sudden, everyone else gets text messages that he died. And it's like, wait, this is someone at the family's that's been around the family for 90 years. And it's just a quick notification. It's kind of like a little pop-up on your phone saying, oh, you got a Facebook notification from your friend Brian that said, hey, I like the picture of the food that you posted.
Right.
And it's just,
yeah. I mean, but that's par for the course nowadays, right? We don't have we don't have any real. I mean, my family is spread. So I'm here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I have a brother and a sister in Los Angeles, and I have a brother and sister in New York, and my parents live in New York. My parents are very old. They're 89 and 90. And we talk via these massive group texts. But like, as with all group texts, they take up a lot of time. They're constantly going off. And you sort of just, it's almost like the TV's on in the background. Like, I'm not really engaged. They're probably saying things that I should probably pay attention to, but it's just way too constant. And again, like I said, we're not designed for that. We're not designed to interact from a distance through texts. I mean, through, inanimate little letters. Yeah. I mean, it's hard for people to understand because we're so used to it. But holy crap, I mean, 30 years ago, there were no cell phones. So we have made this massive sort of evolutionary jump from connecting via, human contact to literally talking to people around the world in real time who you've never met before and affecting each other in such an immense way. We're having I'm having wars with people on Facebook about random subjects that I don't know, that I've never met, that I have absolutely no idea whether they even care to talk. Like, you end up, it's a very strange reality we live in. I think, as you were talking about it, and you mentioned bands putting out records, I also really enjoy the new Bring Me the Horizon stuff. And I think that they repeatedly show a higher sort of vibration and understanding of how to connect with people on a visceral level. They always seem to be able to, whether it's through the music itself, the vocal performances, the word choice, whatever it is, it's very penetrating, which is why they are so much more, in my opinion, successful than other bands. I'm not talking about monetary success. I'm talking about effectiveness, and not like they're not monetarily huge, but the point is, to me, I respect them as much as I like them. But you have the traditional, rolling down Rodeo with a pocket full of shells, right? Like, that's just as important in the way that they're doing it, because the Rage Against the Machine model is to talk about problems via poetry that is designed to incite a reaction. They're looking for you to be shocked into feeling something. Whereas with the raw stuff, even going back to our biggest song from 2000, we wrote that song in 98. It came out in 2002, a song called Do You Call My Name? Lots of people know it. And, the thing I always joke about is, this is a song that I wrote about how society treats people who have clinical depression, and how someone who's depressed in the world, even today, depression is like, oh, he's lazy, oh, he's this, oh, he's not doing, or she's not doing anything because she's not focused, she's not driven enough, and it's like, people with clinical depression, I mean, really severe, sometimes chemical-based depression, they don't have, they're still in a hole they can't get out of, and you're expecting them to go for a jog. So I wrote this song, Do You Call My Name? Meaning, like, are you talking to me, or are you talking to the disease that I have, right? It's basically what the song is about, how you're sort of imprisoned by people's perception. And then, of course, the craziness of the world is that it ends up on Tiger Woods Golf 3. And that's how people find it. So this deep song about clinical depression is like people going for a par 5 on a video game, and that's how they figure it out. Or MX and Unleashed, which was a video game that one of our songs ended up, and that's how people find you. So it's sort of like, there's always that thing where you know, as a band, where you take yourself super seriously and you're trying to achieve like some incredible penetrating idea, and then of course it's while Tiger Woods is trying to putt on the sixth hole of this video game is when they hear your song. So it's always a little humbling, but ultimately with Ra, it's always been sort of like, how do we raise the frequency of how people think, especially people in the rock band, rock world community? Because I think a lot of the people who love rock, in a weird way, and I don't mean this to be judgy, but there's a lot of them are forgotten people. A lot of them are people that are not necessarily super cool LA hipster dudes, or they're not super, you know, like a lot of rock fans to me, especially like core rock fans, not like genty metal progressive dudes who are like math fiends or guitar nerds or musicians. I'm talking about like your average person that gets up in the morning, puts on Octane, and then goes to work and like loves 3 Days Grace and Seether and Shinedown. Like a lot of those people, I mean, a lot of them are older now, which is another thing, which is why I'm still doing what I'm doing, because our audience is, you know, the audience for what we do it leans older, even though we try and make the record as appealing to young people as possible. But there's still a group of people that listen to rock that are sort of just outside the mainstream, and just a little, maybe a little, what's the word? Not lost, but sort of like hungry for an inclusion, a feeling of inclusion. And it's different. You know, like hip hop is massive and pop music is massive, but I don't necessarily always feel, and I'm half Puerto Rican from New York City, grew up on rap, worked for Puffy, worked on Wu-Tang records when I lived in New York. So legit, like legit hip hop roots in my system. But I always felt like the hip hop universe was always so sort of focused on glamour and focused on things that you couldn't get. Like it was always about being a rapper that was better than everyone else and everything. And it was always a competition: who was richest, who was coolest, who was best looking, who had the hottest hose, you know? And in rock, it was always, you know, I guess it came from the fact that a lot of early rock was really mostly focused on rebellion and making political statements. I mean, it's funny, as a producer and a writer, I don't know if you know, but I produce and write for a lot of other bands. So as a producer and a writer, it was interesting that once the political climate in the country became polarized, as it did in the last 4 to 6 years, 4 to 8 years, depending on how you look at it, record companies who were traditionally always afraid of saying anything political, all of a sudden they were like, "Ooh, political is trending. Let's write political songs." So I would get noted, like literal emails from record companies saying, "We're looking for stuff that's political," which of course is such a like disingenuous thing, right? It's
Oh
like,
yeah, easily.
we're really like, political's hot right now, so we're looking for that, you know, and but it does speak to that audience too, because that audience became part of the army, for whichever side you wanted to call it, you know. And of course, you have the majority of the artists leaning one way and the audience leaning another way, and rock sort of it sort of ingests itself at times, where it fights within itself, and you forget. It's a perfect example of like, we're so connected by the music. I mean, the amount of guys that I would get into political wars with on my Facebook page, who ultimately would come back the next day and be like, "Man, Fallen Angels got me through some really hard times in my life," you know? And you're like, that's what's important. That's where we connect. And I would never tell an artist not to say their political views if they really want to, because I feel like their political views are just as on either side. And I have some instances in my personal experience with some of my friends where guys that were not typical typical rock guys or typical artists tend to be liberal Democrats, whatever. But like, I know a few guys that were like, they went for the right wing thing and they sort of got attacked for it. And it's sort of like a little bit of hypocrisy, right? Because it's like, okay, well, wait a second. Even if I personally lean left, it doesn't mean that one side is more valid in terms of speaking your truth. If you're speaking your truth and but also the internet is free for the most part. And if you say something, you have to be ready for whatever the backlash is going to be. You know what I mean? So I've seen it all sort of go both ways, where there's lots of music that walks that fine line between being political or being what I would call the word. Somebody once gave me this word, and I love using it, but it's didactic, which means preachy, like being preachy.
Yeah.
And you always have to walk that line very carefully. But I also found for the raw stuff that I didn't really have a hunger to tell people what to do as much as I had a hunger to try and get people to think. Just give them fuel for thought. So on this record that's coming up, I feel like I'm taking that even one more layer. I'll tell you one song that's when we went and played Shiprock, we played 2 new songs. One of them was Intercorrupted, which is a song that's out right now. The other song I played because it would have literally been a crime not to play it on the ship, because the ship was going to Mexico. And I have a song on the new album called Let's Go to Mexico. And so
that's perfect.
I had to play the song. And so that particular song was, I had written this cool, it's almost like a pop song with like really heavy detuned guitars. But the message was, I was super sick and tired of the fighting and the division in the country. And I started feeling bad metaphorically for America. I just felt bad for the whole country. Like I wanted to take the whole country on vacation at one time. Everybody in the whole country, I wanted to take them on vacation. And my little, I'm not gonna lie, my little Trump dig, I had a little Trump dig in the song, not on purpose, but it was just one of those things where I was like, I took the songs and I was like, well, let's just take everyone to Mexico, because everybody goes on vacation and they go to Cabo San Lucas or Cancun or whatever it is. It's not like people stop going on vacation. So, and this was pre-COVID anyway. But so I wrote this song called Let's Go to Mexico, which was sort of a joke of let's take everyone and go to Mexico together on vacation. And the song really worked good. And I have to say, it's the only song in the history of my entire career where I sang the first verse, I sang the chorus, then I sang the second verse. And when I sang the second chorus, this is to an audience that's never heard this song ever before in their whole life. When I sang the second chorus, they sang it with me.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they sang this. I structured the song in a certain way that it was so hooky that when I got to the second chorus of the first time anyone's ever heard the song, they were singing with me. So it was pretty awesome.
God.
Like that's never happened. It was really, really cool. But yeah, and it's a fun song. There's, the thing with Ra also is if people are fans of the band, there is a legacy of comedy in all of these records. People don't remember because they think of Do You Call My Name and Sky and Fallen Angels and Rectifier, all of these sort of like, we're going to make it through, Don't Turn Away, all of these like heavy songs. But every album has sort of like some funny songs on it. And on Black Sun, we had a song called Wasted Space, which is about our old label that we had signed to, and the guy screwed us over. On Critical Mass, I literally wrote a song about jerking off to Katy Perry. That's the entire song. That is all the song is about. It is, and it's called Ecstasy. And if you after this podcast, if you go on to Critical Mass, which is the album from 2013, and listen to a song called Ecstasy. And if you listen to it, let's try and catch the words. They're literally about jerking off to Katy Perry. But that's neither here nor there. But I have other songs, throughout the history of the band. We had a song called You Need Me, which I literally wrote about a serial killer, and it says really fucked up stuff, but it's really funny because he's like trying to convince people. He's like looking out the window, talking to like girls, and it's really creepy. And it's just, I think you have to have fun with it, and we don't take ourselves super duper serious, but we try and, be respectful of the art form, and I think it also System of a Down used to do that too. Like they had such a great sense of humor with their stuff that I miss that in other bands. I miss that when you can have something that's sort of irreverent, but also sort of tongue in cheek without it being bad or obnoxious.
Yeah, because there's a good amount of bands where, I'm not gonna lie, when they've created some stuff, like, it's so upfront and just so in your face that it does get obnoxious at points as well. And for me, with more of my political leans, because I'm more just, I don't lean one way or the other way. More for me, it's like pick and choose on an issue. It's like sometimes it might go right, sometimes it might go left. That's just the way it is. So when there's sometimes where bands are really super duper upfront with it and just real brash and heavy and kind of in your face with it, and it does get annoying. For me, that's how I kind of feel a bit about Rage Against the Machine sometimes. So that's where I don't really connect with them. However, my favorite band of all time is a punk band that leans left completely, which is really weird because there's been times where
what band is that?
Rise Against.
Oh, sure.
So for me, it's just like, I've gotten people to ask me just like, and kind of get on my case, like, oh, you listen to their stuff, you're such a big fan of their stuff that you don't always like follow their like style or like their political views. What's up with that? I'm like, well, I love the music, I love the message, and I love the passion that they have in there, where they're not throwing it in your face the whole entire time.
Yeah,
and it's just somewhere it's smooth. I love it.
Just to cut to sort of a perfect illustration of that is I'm from New York City. I grew up, in Manhattan. I grew up in Queens, but I spent enormous amounts of time in Manhattan, and I have met Donald Trump 2 different times. I met him. I thought he was awesome when I met him, and me and my wife, one of our favorite shows was The Apprentice. We absolutely loved that. We barely ever missed an episode of The Apprentice. So it wasn't ever. It was weird for me to sort of disagree with him when it came to how he conducted himself. I didn't even disagree with him that much on policy. It was mostly just how he conducted himself. But, when it comes to making a choice one way or the other, it's sort of, the real world should start really focusing on the idea that if you make a choice, you're cutting one arm off. It's like you're limiting your choice, you're limiting your options in your life if you decide you're going to live all the way on the left or all the way on the right. It just doesn't make any sense to do that, but I think people are slowly starting to get into that mindset. And I think, even people who talk about being libertarian or any of that other stuff, like, there has to be another option. There has to be a way to walk down the middle and not be considered, in the old days, if you walk down the middle, they looked at you like you're not choosing a side, so you're sort of just weak and you're not doing it. But it's actually a lot harder to walk down the middle. It's a lot harder to be objective and say, no, I lean left on this, but I totally lean right on this. I mean, I live in Indiana, so it's like one of the reddest states on the planet. And I don't have a lot of guns. I don't have any guns yet. I'm working on it. But we have lots of friends here, and I love going shooting, and I love hanging out with them, and they're, we get along great. People are people. This is the part that's artificial is obvious. When you hang around good people, they're good people. What they believe can be hard to accept, but it doesn't make them bad people. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's just, with music, that is a very dangerous place to hang your hat unless, like, I'll give you an example. Like, one of the bands that I work with all the time is a band called Starset. Do you know the band?
Oh yeah.
So I work with Starset all the time. In fact, they'll be here probably in 2 weeks to work on some more songs. The trick with Starset is that he's making constant political statements in the song, constantly, in the entire whole last record. The album is called Divisions. Literally, the album is all about political things, but it's set in a universe that's not our universe. So because it's taking place somewhere else, his version of dystopia and or utopia and or politics, it all comes from a fiction. It's 1984 by Orwell. It's not real life. So we give him, he's made it, he's super smart. He makes it so that he can say whatever he wants to say, but he never has to really address our reality because he's created his own. So that's sort of a thing that I share with him with the raw stuff. Like the raw stuff is sort of that too. The raw stuff is less concept album and more just like, I spent years meditating and time in India, and it's where I got my name and all kinds of stuff. And that's sort of where I like that plane of existence. I like the higher vibration. I think music is a high vibration. I think there's meditation and things that are even higher than that. And if we can sort of just make a cool riff and a cool guitar part and a really cool vocal line, people might actually listen to some of the shit I'm saying, and it might actually help them handle where we are right now, which is part of the reason why I made this record.
Totally understandable. And one thing I kind of want to jump back into, because you're talking about when you're talking about "Do You Call My Name," talking about how we're talking about people going through depression, clinical depression, and
Sure.
It's like, well, you're talking about them, or you're talking about the disease kind of thing, and you're really trying to focus in on that. Yet people again heard it first time on Tiger Woods' golf game while he's trying to shoot on a par 5.
Yeah.
When it comes down to the music, though, it's when you write stuff like that, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up putting some of your own personal experiences in that, which is understandable because when you're talking about certain subjects, that always is going to come in. But why a bunch of people really latch on that song, in my opinion, is going to be because when they listen to it, they basically connected with the message because maybe they didn't go through like exactly what the song was talking about, but the overall emotion, overall feeling that they got from that is similar to what they went through. So there's an understanding there. And when it comes to, that's why you see so many different people at live shows when it comes to, so many different walks of life, like kind of like we were talking about with like that standard archetype of a rock fan. It's kind of just that person that just, wakes up, goes to work, just kind of like basically is like that like blue collar American kind of style guy or woman.
Right.
Could be either or. But it's when you go to shows too, it's just there's so many people from so many different walks of life. And why they're there, and why at times it's like you'd see these people out on, just anywhere else in the world, and they might be, bickering back and forth. They might always be arguing with each other. But when you get into a concert setting, when everyone's there just for the music, it's like a whole entire family vibe right there because everyone connects with the music in a different way, but everyone's connecting with it in a positive way that everyone's sharing that experience, and that's amping up everybody's experience throughout it. I mean, I've been to so many live shows before, so many live shows last year and just by itself because, God, I think I went to like 30 or 40 or something like that. And there are times where I'd see people where, I've never seen these people anywhere else. I don't know anything about them, but it's like every time I'd see them, they were kind of felt like my friends just due to the fact that we were all there to see the same bands. We were all there to enjoy the same bands together because we all connected with them in such a positive way, whether it's something where we just enjoy the sound or maybe their music helped us out during an incredible, difficult time in our lives. But because we all have that positive reaction to it, when that song starts playing, everyone's going to have an emotional response to it positively, but it might be different, but everyone's going to be enjoying it and connect within that own way.
Yeah, I think there are, it's sort of obvious which genres of music sort of feed off of the family vibe, right? Like rock does, country does,
Oh, yeah.
certainly EDM does, right? Because EDM is all about sort of being in the subculture. But yeah, I think, and of course, not that pop and hip hop don't do that. It obviously does. Like, I know grown women in this town that are 35 years old that will spend any amount of money to go to a Justin Bieber concert, like literally. And it's because they just like, they can't get enough of the vibe and the energy that he provides. And look, I love pop. I think that stuff is really, really cool. There is something special, I got the honor of working with Chad Gray about 3 weeks ago in Vegas. I flew to Vegas and I got to work with Chad. And I've worked with Motley Crue and I've had Nikki Sixx at my house. And in fairness, and Nikki's going to hate that I say this, but in fairness, I was less starstruck with Nikki because as much as I love that era in time, I was a super Metallica fan and I wasn't really a Motley Crue fan. So I knew obviously he's incredible and in terms of like what Motley Crue achieved, I was aware of that. And I was certainly honored to be working with him because I wrote with them on The Dirt and all that stuff. But, working with Chad, like I know everybody. I mean, I'm working right now. I'm doing Lejean's solo record right now. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff. I've just finished I'm working with Jason Hook from Five Finger. But there was something about hanging out with Chad. Like, I played shows, we'd opened for Mudvayne back in the day, but Mudvayne was one of those bands that was like, you can't fuck with Mudvayne. Like, Mudvayne was like the shit. Like, I remember seeing them play on shows with big giant artists, and everyone else had the obligatory walkout sub-frequency programmed intro, and it was, the loopy drums. And by the way, we've done that shit. So, like, I'm not saying that we don't do it, but fucking Mudvayne didn't even have a sequencer. The drummer didn't play to a click. They just came out, and it was four dudes crushing. And Chad, back in those days was absolutely on fucking fire. So when I'm hanging out with him and he's telling me that Mudvayne's coming back, I'm like, oh shit. And I'm hanging out with him like a buddy. Like, we're just hanging. I went to his house that night and we had pizza. Like, I mean, it was a very interesting thing. And, and again, I have a long list of people in my universe currently that probably 10 years ago, if you told me I was working with these people, I'd be like, really? That's my future? Oh my God. But I take my work so seriously that, like, I don't look at me doing Lejean's solo record as like, oh shit, how cool am I? It's like, I better not fuck this up. Yeah. That's how I think. I'm like, LJ's been talking about doing a solo record for 15 years. I'm going to have to deliver this fucking thing. And I'm super stoked with where we're at. Everybody that works with him is super stoked with where we're at. But, that's the way I look at everything. So, like, working with Hook, who just recently left Five Finger, it's like, Jason and I we're very similar age. We have the same sort of personality. We just talk and it came out of nowhere. Mind you, Jason knows me because of Nikki Sixx. So Nikki hooked me up, basically told Jason, he's like, oh, if you're going to do stuff, you should probably work with Sahaj. And I was like, and Jason hit me up and I was like, oh, cool, let's talk. And it just sort of spiraled from there. And I went to Vegas. When I went to Vegas to work with Chad, I went and hung out. We did a couple of days at Hook's place. And then, with Dustin, I have some of my best work. Certainly, I would say my best work that's out as a producer, non-raw, is all the stuff I've worked with Dustin and Starset. And I think, even though I don't have a lot of production credit on those, a lot of those songs, especially like Die For You and some of the bigger songs that I really like, Manifest, those are songs that, like, have a lot of my stamp on them. And I feel really proud to be involved with a band that has such a unique sort of like place in the rock world. And over the summer, I cut the drums for the new Raw record with Scooter, our drummer, in New Orleans. And through a series of odd events, I ended up hanging out with a friend who's really good friends with Johnny Hawkins from Nothing More. And we hung out the whole night and ended up writing a couple of songs with them. Hopefully one of them makes the album or something like that. But we've been going back and forth on stuff. And that's another band that for me is in a unique place artistically, where you're not just like, there's a lot of bands that they end up sort of being on the same stage with other bands that sound like that. And yet, for me, Starset and Nothing More, they sort of share a thing because there's a lot of programming and a lot of this and that, and it's conceptual, but they're also sort of super unique and sort of really high concept, if you will. And so I'm certainly proud of working with Starset. We'll see if my song ends up on the album, then I'll be proud of working with Nothing More. But currently there's so many things circling, and projects that I'm working on with bands small and large that I'm friends with, that I've known for years. And it's just been really good. And I'm super stoked. I mean, I got lucky with the COVID thing because most of my bands couldn't tour. So because they weren't touring, they're like, well, we got to record. So I was like, all right, we'll come over. And I just left Los Angeles. I literally moved out of Los Angeles February 27th, and it shut down March 3rd.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I left LA right before it shut down. And then now I'm living in this big old house in the middle of, a brand new addition that doesn't even show up on a map. So there's like half of the houses aren't even built yet. And so there's nothing but space here. And a lot of people were more excited to come instead of less excited. You know, and you would think people, the pandemic are like, oh, I don't want to leave my house. They were like, no, get me the fuck out of Los Angeles. I mean, Jason Hook came here. We never met each other. He came to my house here in Fort Wayne to meet. Like, it was just craziness. So there's a lot of cool things that are going on right now. And there's also, I don't know if you play an instrument or anything like that, but there's a music store here called Sweetwater. And it's a really, really big online retailer, $600-700 million in retail every year. They're massive, massive place. They also have 2 very, very, very high-end recording studios. And now that I live here, we're talking about doing stuff on a regular basis together. So that's even become a whole other layer. And then on top of that, I have to manage now being the front man of a band again and doing so. So life is crazy. I have a 5-year-old and my wife, and it's all very nuts, but very sort of like, there's a part of me that's relishing feeling this sort of, I feel like I'm wringing life out of the towel a little bit more than I have in the past. Because even when I was in LA, I would do these 10-hour days, but I didn't live, you know, like there's a lot of just like, okay, here's another project, here's another song, here's another thing, here's another that. And it became very routine, and there wasn't a lot of satisfaction for me. Because if you think about the songwriting game, a lot of it is sort of throwing darts at a target. Like, you're only going to hit the bullseye every 20 times you throw it. So you got to write 20 songs to get one placed. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of grind. So when you get to write your own songs for yourself and gratify, you know, the self-gratifying feeling is pretty intense.
Oh my God, yeah, it has to be. And I love the fact you're talking about kind of like literally taking a shirt, just wringing out life outside of it, due to the fact that, especially the time we're in now with this whole weird COVID thing and you being out in Indiana, the fact that you're able to do all of that and just all the different kind of connections that are being made through that as well. Because like you're saying, like all of a sudden you're getting to work with Chad Gray, you work with Nikki 64 now, and you're working with Starset, and all of a sudden you're working with all these different bands at the same time as well. And it's absolutely incredible to think about that. And the fact that you're really absolutely enjoying it, and now back up with fronting for Ra. Like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be enjoying life to the fullest at this moment.
It's cool. I'm tired because I've always been a late bloomer. So like, even when I got signed to Universal, I was old for a guy getting signed to Universal in 2002. Like, I was on the, is this guy too old to be doing this? And so for me to be doing this now, thank God, I'm gonna knock on wood, thank God my mom has good genes, because I don't look anything like my age. But I pull off, you know, I work all the time, and my wife's 15 years younger than me, and it's, you know, my kid keeps me super young, and I'm really fun, you know, focused on a lot of stuff. We got to make the video, by the way. I don't know if you got to check out our retarded Intercorrupted video. Like, that video was so much work. Like, no one will really like, you can watch it and be like, well, that's sort of cheesy, and that was this and that was that. But we had to shoot 85 shots in one day in Phoenix, Arizona, in the summertime, wearing a suit and a mask. It was 115 by the time it was 2:00 in the afternoon. The guy who directed it, a guy named Kurt Pear, had to go to the hospital with heat stroke that night. And people are like, well, I don't like the way, you know, oh, that you didn't act that part out cool or whatever it is. And I'm like, dude, we were blitzkrieging that video. We took two or three takes, ran to the next flat, ran to the next. I mean, that we shot that whole thing from 5:30 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. And I mean, there's a shot in there, I tell this all the time, there's a shot in that thing where I'm laying on the floor because something happens and I'm laying on the floor towards the end. We took that shot like 3 or 4 times, but we also took a meter and put it to the floor because we were at the top of a garage. We took a meter and put it on the floor, and the meter said the floor was 152 degrees. 52, not 115, 152 degrees, because it was absorbing the heat of the sun. And I laid on it for like 6 minutes straight. And my leg was like red and all messed up.
Oh,
like that was, you know, there's all these things that are happening in this music video that, you know, sometimes the story of making the video is even crazier than the video itself. I mean, and, you know, I personally, I'm a perfectionist, and I go crazy, and I had a vision for the video that we didn't have time to finish. But we're going to do a special edition, I think, that will come out somewhere around Christmas, a special edition of the video with my friend who is a high-level CGI artist, and he's going to take it that whole extra thing, because we have this, you know, in the video there's a case, and the case is supposed to represent something, but we didn't have time to animate all the stuff it was supposed to represent. So that all got sort of like rushed and all of that. But when we do the special edition, it's going to have all the footage with all the CGI and all the stuff so that it looks the way it's supposed to look. So hopefully we'll get that done by Christmas. But that'll be fun, because then you get to see it. I get to do my George Lucas special edition and not feel like I half-assed it. But it was, you know, either way, it still came out really great. And the guy who shot it, again, Kurt Pear, he absolutely crushed. You know, he brought $1 million worth of gear to this shoot and just did an incredible job filming it.
I mean, you can tell the quality that's behind that video as well, because I still remember watching it, like within the first minute, I thought I was actually watching some sort of like spy espionage movie, just the way it was shot, just the certain cinematics behind it, the certain movements that you guys had. It really kind of pulled all of that into it. So even though you guys were working in, like, you know, in Phoenix in the summer, in 115 degrees on top of a parking garage, I mean, it was, for me personally, it was still hard to tell that you guys went through that in a whole entire day due to the heat. I mean, I wasn't able to tell.
Crazy. I mean, my friends all in LA and my wife included, like, there's a scene in it where I'm running, and my wife's like, I didn't know you could run. And my friend literally texts me in a thing. He's like, I'm watching this video, and all I can think about is, I don't think I've ever seen Sahaj run before. So, you know, and I'm running full speed, so it's pretty ridiculous because I look ridiculous, but it is, you know, it was part of the thing, and we designed the whole sort of climax of the video to have it. So I had to figure out how to get the old legs moving. It was actually super fun. I mean, as hot as it was and as crazy as it was, I was so motivated and so satisfied with the process that, you know, it scratched an itch that I had for 20 years, because 20 years ago I wanted to do an action video for Do You Call My Name, and Universal wouldn't give us the money, because in those days videos were very expensive. And, you know, if I told you that what we paid to make this video, the one that you watched, like, you would not believe how cheap it was. And this was a personal favor by this guy. And, you know, I can't undersell how much more it should have cost.
Yeah, because there was one a couple of weeks ago or something, but maybe last month or something, because I was on Twitch on Ronnie Radke's live stream, just because I was watching at work, just seeing what was going on. And someone asked him how much, like, the Popular Monster video cost.
Sure.
And it was like, oh, so he said, just take a guess. And the person guessed, and it was like, oh, $500,000. And all of a sudden he just started laughing. It was like, no. It was, I'm not going to tell you the exact number. I'll put it this way. It was way more than that. So I can easily understand where it comes to those music videos being able, like, costing a lot, and why Universal didn't want to put the money up for Do You Call My Heart? Or, yeah, is that it? Shoot. Yeah, Do You Call My Name. I was like, oh my God. I'm thinking Heart. My God. You know,
that's all right. You're mixing. It's the Bring Me the Horizon mashup for Can You Feel My Heart and Do You Call My Name.
As you can tell, like I said right before we started recording, I'm gonna mess up at some point today, and
there it was.
So thank you for correcting me, but, like, I can easily see where that comes in, because when you're thinking about music videos, and I'm seeing some of the other music videos that have come out, a lot of the times some of the simple ones really work out really well, but there are other times where some of those super duper cinematic ones, sometimes you absolutely need those to make the song pop even more. And when you watch the one for Intercorrupted, you do get that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, we've only done one video in 20 years, which was the original Do You Call My Name video, which we shot in a basketball court with 2 cameras. Like, literally, it was just a performance video. It was ridiculous, and it served its purpose. It still cost $10,000, but it was basically simple. And if we were going to do a first video in 17 years, I was like, well, it's got to be something crazy. And I just thought to myself, I said, no one wants to see old dudes playing their instruments. No one wants to see that. I just hate videos like that. Even if you're young and you're cool, I don't want to see you if I see another fucking video with a band in a factory playing, you know, I'm just like, this is the stupidest shit I've seen 1,000 times. I'm so not going to do that. So the idea of, and obviously taking a cue from Starset, who did, like, you know, concept, but, you know, they don't want to be in the videos. And I was like, you know what? I want to be in the video, but I want to be the villain, and I want to be the heavy, because as an older guy and a bigger older guy, I can pull that off. but I don't want to be in tight jeans holding the guitar singing to the camera, because I did that on the Maytal stuff. I don't know if you know who Maytal Cohen is, but she's a YouTube drummer phenom who has like millions of followers and all this stuff. But I ended up doing fronting her band, which sort of set up me doing the new Raw stuff. But we did a video for this song called Armalite, and the video is pretty cool. And I can survive it even though I am in tight jeans, wearing a guitar, singing at the camera. I can do it. I just was like, man, I don't buy me doing that. You know, I'm not like some skinny, I'm not Ollie, you know, I can't pull it off. So I was just like, this is not my game. So I think for the next video, I am going to do a performance video, but it's just going to be me walking in the woods singing this lyrics to this song. But this particular song is like, it makes more sense. All the footage is slow-mo. It's a whole other thing. It's not going to look quite as, it's not an action movie at all. It's more meditative, but the track is really heavy. It's a cool thing.
And that's understandable. And I do get what you're saying when you're talking about when you have a music video, if it's just like a performance video, and that a band like in a warehouse or in like it just somewhere just playing. It's something that you see those videos, or like out in a field just for no apparent reason. It's you watch the video, it's like, okay. But when you think about music videos, like the ones that people remember are the ones that really capture everything around it and around everything that's going on. And another perfect example of that honestly has got to be what Ice Nine Kills did with their whole entire Silver Scream stuff, because they had a music video that was like it was a 5-part movie in a way.
Yeah.
And it was something where
he was talking about that when we were on Shiprock. So I was told that this was coming, and I guess the timeline for it accelerated because COVID happened. But yeah, I mean, you know, Spencer has you know, like I said, sort of an in-depth knowledge of film and a passion for horror films and all this other stuff. And he has like this whole multi-year timeline of how he's going to release all this content. And I think it's the only way you can be nowadays. You have to sort of think that way in order to be competitive, unless you're sort of a core artist already. If you're Shinedown, you're Shinedown. You don't have to worry. You know, you put out a record, people are going to buy it, and you tour and you do what you're going to do. I mean, not that they're not conceptual. Mind you, I'd like to take 1 second to say that the Smith and Myers stuff is actually really good. And I'm not the biggest Shinedown fan in the universe, but the Smith and Myers stuff is actually like memorably good, which is always nice to see, right? Guys that we used to play with back a million years ago, evolving to a point where they're sort of like really doing something interesting. So I you know, I'm just doing a little shout out there, but yeah, I mean, it's all good, man.
Oh, easily. And it's like, even with Intercorrupted as well, there was a little bit of a Shinedown feel that I did get on the track as well, especially in the chorus. Yeah, because when I was listening to it, I was trying to figure out exactly why the way the chorus was constructed with Intercorrupted, with the way you were singing it as well, where I felt that some similar vibe to and similar kind of emotion overall when it came to trying to find another song that really captured that same feeling that I had. And the one that I landed on especially was the chorus and the post-chorus for Attention Attention by Shinedown. That not just the album, the titular song from the album as well. Because it just, I don't know what it was, but it's just, the sound just really just hits you in a certain way on both Intercorrupted and on Attention. It hits you in the same way with the same kind of vigor and the same kind of power, with more of like just more drawn up melodicized kind of feel, which I really do like.
Yeah, I gotta check that out, because I don't think I'm aware of that song, and if I am aware of it, I certainly haven't listened to it more than once or twice. So I gotta go listen back and see if I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it came out on their 2018 release.
Okay, so that was the record that had like some Imagine Dragons overtones.
Yeah, a little bit. And like the songs that I really like, the one song that really kind of had the old, like, 'cause I'm not a big Imagine Dragons fan. I really don't like them. That's just my personal taste, though. But the one song that kind of had a little bit of that overtone to it in the intro was a song called was it Black Sun or Black Soul? I can't remember the name of it, but like the intro has it, but then it goes, it kind of just builds up to it, and then all of a sudden, once you get to the full chorus of it, it just hits with this really intense hard rock kind of vigor to it. So it's like, okay, I can see where the lead into it with that like Imagine Dragons overtone actually worked out really well in my opinion. So I'm like, okay, I can really get behind it. There's some stuff I was like, I'm gonna pass on, but then again, when it comes to that, that's all based on personal opinion and personal taste.
Right, yeah, and of course, like I said, I mean, I always say the same thing Shinedown, because I listen to not just the songs, but I listen to the production and the craftsmanship that goes into making the records. And they've always made records that sound incredible and have like a real sort of like sonic stamp. And I always feel like there's an effort being made. There's certain bands that sort of, for me, that just feel like they sort of make the same record over and over again and just sort of capitalize on it. And I'm never sure whether it's because that's all they can do or whether or not they're more interested in the branding than they are sort of reaching out creatively. But either way, I appreciate the Shinedown universe because of the way the albums always sound really, really powerful.
Yeah, and there's always bands that do have that kind of styles where it's just you listen to their albums and it's like they're a little bit different every now and again, but they always have that same power and that same kind of, I wouldn't say go like blast in your face, but kind of like penetrate you on the inside a little bit, like kind of hit you in the heartstrings a little bit, just to play, like hit you, basically kind of, what's the best way to put it? Kind of hit you in the emotions in a more like hard rock kind of powerful way. Right. That's not just like trying to like kind of creep in and kind of just really like dig deep in. It's like a quick punch kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I think, in the DNA of even the most progressive, even the most cool Bring Me the Horizon song, there's still elements of Linkin Park and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and bands that sort of formed in the 90s and early 2000s, because those are the bands that sort of redefined what rock radio were. I mean, and to a certain extent, those are also the bands that sort of set the trajectory for rock radio to die, not because they weren't good, but because so many people copied them that the originality started to disappear from the style. But now it feels like in the last 5 to 10 years that there's been sort of a little bit of a reshift back towards the creativity part of the rock universe. And I mean, I dig all the bands that try really hard to incorporate pop elements. Obviously Bring Me the Horizon was really the first one to do it on a massive scale. And now bands like I Prevail and Asking Alexandria and all of those guys, like they're all pulling from like that alternative / pop world where they can cross over and have a little bit of love on both sides of the fence. And I like that stuff. I think it's cool. I think there's still sort of a gap between like the truly great pop artists and what some of the rock artists try to do. But I think that gap has gotten smaller in the last 2 to 3 years than it was, say, 5 years ago. I think a lot of bands in like 2015, 2016 were just sort of like experimenting with, how do I make a poppy melody and how do I put it on a rock song? And it just got it was sort of a shitty version of that. But they've sort of figured it out a little bit better now. I mean, sometimes as a producer and a guy that's like so obsessed with melodies, and I have really good memory. So sometimes I hear a song and I'm like, that's that Halsey song. Oh, that's a Miley Cyrus song. Oh, that's and I know exactly where they got it from. But the audience, if you're a true rock fan, then you don't have exposure to Billie Eilish, So It's like, to get some of that flavor secondhand from a rock song is still valuable to me,
Oh, it very much is. And like for rock fans as well, it's just the way that they're created at the same time as well, just to incorporate those more pop melodies, those more pop sounds as well. One thing that I've always been consistent on is there has to be something that usually connects like that connects the artist's core style with that pop element. And I'll use Bring Me the Horizon as a perfect example. That's on a song off of the Post-Human Survival Horror with Kingslayer, which featured baby metal on it, because they went with more of this like produced metalcore cyberpunk kind of sound, but they also incorporated the J-pop stylings that baby metal also incorporates in their sound as well. And I was trying to figure out, why does this all work together so well? And it was all based on how each part and how each influence was paced in that song. Because everything's got that fast pace to it. So when you mix it together, it blends so well. And then you have Ali's vocals, where there's times when he's singing, there's times when he's doing his rougher, unclean kind of style, and then he's doing his whole deathcore kind of scream. Yeah, then you've got Su Metal coming in with the softer, more higher pitch kind of vocals, but they work so well with the pacing at the same time as well. Everything just flows together in comparison, and then also in contrast with the overall tones of, you get some heavy, hard hitting kind of drumming style. Then you get this like cyberpunk J-pop kind of track over it. But that contrast of that heavier sound, that more high pitched, lighter sound, it just draws out the sound of both of those in a completely different way, but also makes them better at the same time too, because you can hear the difference.
The trick with all of that is always the same thing. It's, it doesn't really matter. The finessing that has to go on to make something like that work is a skill set, but more importantly, the authenticity required. So if you get two artists that are on diametric different sides of the scale, but they're incredibly authentic, like their delivery feels real no matter what they're doing, you can create that bridge fairly easy, because the hardest part of making any song is getting people to believe you. So if you have that part of it figured out, Ollie knows how to get people to believe you, and Baby Metal knows how to get their audience to believe them, and they do a certain thing with their melodies and the whole thing. I mean, it's, to me, it may, from a micro examination, it may seem really far apart, but to me, doing what I do day in and day out, looking at it, it's like, no, they're really not that far apart in terms of what they're really doing. Even though they sound different, the ultimate universe, they share the same universe. It's just the J-pop version of the same universe, but it makes sense to me. And again, you don't, it's a risk reward thing. You have to take those risks in order to be able to even find out if it can work. But if you have a skill set and you're really dedicated to what you do, then what you do can incorporate other things without it necessarily diluting it. Well, talking about producer stuff, but still, I think it's a cool vibe.
Yeah, and when I'm hearing you talk about the producer stuff as well, I'm taking it from a fan's perspective, a little bit more of a deeper fan's perspective, because when I'm doing like album reviews or I'm looking at music or I'm actually trying to dive deep into it, I will try and deconstruct every single part of it in my own way, just due to the fact that I don't have that extensive musical background that I could have had, because when I was a kid, I was a drummer, but then all of a sudden I got into high school and was like, okay, I could continue playing drums, or I could go and play sports, and I could do one or the other. And because I was 14 years old and I love sports, I kind of went that way. But now I'm like, oh, we're going back the other way on this. Still want to get myself an drum kit though, just because, why not?
Drums are awesome.
When it comes to just trying to deconstruct some of these songs, I'm taking a look at it from my own perspective, trying to figure this out kind of on the fly in a way, but I'm figuring this out in my own way and understanding certain things that when I talk about them, I get people like, oh, we never thought of it that way. But then when you're talking about it in a producer setting, I'm thinking, oh man, I got a lot more to learn.
Well, I mean, again, but this is, it's no different than a guy who works in a car shop and knows the insides of cars. You know what I mean? It's like, I do this all day. So my perception of it and my perspective on it is both as an observer from a wide perspective, but I'm also really able to sort of dissect and see the minutia of things. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'm constantly impressed by Bring Me the Horizon all the time. It's even me and Dustin, when we were together, we always sort of we're always like, wow, this is a band that has been fairly creative on a level consistently. It's very difficult to do when, what your sound is fairly defined. Like, it's not like their sound is this huge, wide, crazy. I mean, the Ammo record maybe, was a leap out, but
yeah.
But I always think of that as Justin's solo album, which is more the one guy, the producer, or Jordan or Justin, I think it's Justin. But his thing to just go nuts. But the band is fairly defined, and to be able to sort of sustain this and create music that still resonates and still feels good and new, I mean, I think that's really cool.
It really is. And like, even what I did was, because Amo was one of the first albums I actually reviewed for the whole entire project, and not gonna lie, I really didn't care for it. It's just, again, personal opinion. But then after a couple of months, I made another video about dissecting why Bring Me the Horizon made an album like that, and I really looked into it to try and understand why they went and made Amo the way they did. And
I think it's pretty obvious to me. I mean, to me, the obvious thing was they had done Sempiternal, they had done That's the
That's the
Spirit.
Spirit. Yeah.
And then they did what was the one after that?
It was Amo after that.
Oh, then I'm talking about the one that had just like the EDM ambience record. What was that called?
Oh, the songs to like it was like a 50 word long title. That
Yeah, yeah, that was the one I was talking about.
okay.
I think Ammo, because Ammo has like mantra and stuff on it. And
Yeah.
I think what they were trying to do there was they were just sort of setting up um with Ammo. I think they were trying to set up, the parameters, and I think they were testing some boundaries. I made a post about medicine, and at the time I really didn't like that song, and the reason I didn't like that song is because certain bands have to be very careful of how far they push the barriers. So to me, and I listen to a lot of pop and I listen to a lot of stuff. So to me, Bring Me the Horizon is very special when it does its combination of angst and pop and all of this other stuff. That song Medicine to me was so poppy that it felt, I mean, the way I described it is it seemed like a 3-year-old 5 Seconds of Summer song. It didn't really have the thing that makes Bring Me the Horizon special to me wasn't the focal point of that song. So then it just became sort of like a pop song. And then if you're going to put yourself in the category where now you're going to be compared to the actual pop artists, like the actual people doing this, then you start to become less special. Because how do you, it's not like you can't be better at what 5 Seconds of Summer does than 5 Seconds of Summer.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you put yourself in direct competition with a band like that, not that they're so great, but the idea is that they do something very specific and they're very good at it. It's hard to put yourself in that position and then expect the results to be as good as that band that's all they do. So that song for me sort of rubbed me the wrong way. And I was like, that song to me is just too pop. And then I think maybe they came to the same conclusion because after that, they did the super ambient crazy record. And then when they did this latest one, they went back to heavy guitars and back to cool parts and back to anxiety and sort of having that tension in the tracks that they had lost, for a couple of records. So I think that that part of it is full circle. It feels like it came back to what it was that we all wanted them to do.
Yeah, for me, it was that angst and that anger and that emotion was just, it felt like it was stripped away, especially as you got into Amo and then you got into I can't even, songs to whatever. I think I'm just going to call it that from now on. But then when it came to Post-Human Survival Horror, where even you had features from Baymel, you had features from Nova Twins, from Amy Lee, and you had features from Youngblood also on there as well.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, that there's a lot going on there. I'm not going to lie. I was nervous when Obey came out with Youngblood because I'm like, okay, what the heck are they going to do with this? But then when I listened to it, it's just, I was like, oh, I see what's going on here. And it's just, it felt much more natural to Bring Me the Horizon. And then when you listen to what they were doing on Youngblood's verse, it was, they made the instrumentals a lot more electronic just for that specific part. And it helped bring out Youngblood's part even more because it matched his style a little bit more. So I was like,
the first time I heard that song,
really
I actually had a hard time figuring out who was singing. Because when the Youngblood was singing, I was like, wait, is that Ollie? No, that's Youngblood. Wait, no, that's Youngblood. No, that's Ollie. I got confused because I was listening to it at the gym, and so I couldn't hear it like on headphones or anything. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, I think again, again for me, they're one of the better sort of things out there, especially anything that's been relatively new that I haven't personally worked on.
Yeah, because I've gone through a bunch of stuff that's more relatively new just to really try and get a deep dive into it. And there's some stuff lately I'm like, okay, there's some stuff that I'm going to pass on a little bit. There's stuff I like, but there's only a couple things lately that I've listened to, and I was just like, basically my jaw was on the floor listening to them. And one was the new Bring Me the Horizon record. One was the debut record from a band called Saul. Their album Rises Equals. I listen now, I'm just like, this is good stuff. Just going off on it. And then there's some stuff even like earlier beginning of the year in 2020, because I'm just sticking it within the year, that I really enjoyed, like Polaris's album, The Death of Me. I thought that was incredible. Trivium's new record, where they kind of had this different feel of, they were picking different parts of each like album that they made. So you got a little bit of a different sound throughout the whole entire track, or all these different tracks, but everything still felt as such a cohesive unit, where when you got to the stuff that kind of resembled something that was more like Silence in the Snow,
right,
It was just like, oh, it's like you hear Matt Heafy, he's going to go all clean on this one, but it still had that heaviness feel to it that Trivium had with a little bit more of a faster paced kind of style. Then you got to something like The Ones We Leave Behind. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the Sin the Sentence 2.0 right here to end the album. Right. I was like, oh, this is, and I'm just sitting there just like, just having a good time with it. But it's just that connectiveness that's there. It's just, man, when I've seen bands that kind of manipulate some of their sounds in a way, but when you manipulate in a way, but I've always said this, if you keep that core there that really kind of makes you special, you can go in so many different directions and you can try so many different things and you can keep that core there while also expanding your horizons. And Bring Me the Horizon on this last record did that perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I think there's a lot of stuff on the record that we're putting out in March that will probably, after you specifically, after having this conversation with me, I think you'll listen to the album, you'll be like, ooh, he's aiming for that. You'll figure out what it is that I'm going for. There's certain newer artists that are that have stuck with me. I actually like Grandson quite a bit. So I like Grandson, I like Sleep Token, I like a bunch of cool, newer bands. But yeah, that's the lay of the land, my brother.
Oh, easily. And I was going to be like, oh, well, I'll have to take a listen to the record. But I'm like, wait a minute, I'm already going to end up listening to the record when it comes out, because I know when it comes out, it's March 21st, correct?
March 19th.
19th.
Pre-sale.
Oh, man.
The pre-sale is February 1st. And then March 19th, which is that Friday, is when the album will come out.
I'm mixing up my days here. Dang, you leap year.
Yeah, it's all good. No worries.
Well, once February 1st comes out and I'm able to start pre-saving it, I mean, I'm going to pre-order it right on that day just because, well,
we'll
bing, bang, boom.
We'll send you a preliminary copy, of course.
Ooh, now I'm excited for that. Yeah. Because I'm looking forward to listening, especially after listening to Intercorrupted, because again, it has that, like what I said was it had this certain power to it when you listen to it. And one thing I really liked about it was when you kind of took a look at the message that was behind the track, because I did read the little like press promo that
Sure.
that Shauna sent me, just like, okay, see what the meaning of the song is, because I always like to see what the meaning of the song is, then take a look at the lyrics as well, and then see how the song within the instrumentals, not just the vocals, but the instrumentals, also plays off of what the meaning is. And what I really
from a music standpoint, it's an interesting song because, I write and work with so many newer bands that I sort of clearly know like what is new and cool, but my fans are 20 years older than when we broke. So how was I had to, the conundrum of a song like Intercorrupted is, how do I make something sound like Raw, sound like old Raw, but still somehow not sound dated and not sound like it came out, that it should have come out in 2004. So, I spent a lot of time sort of analyzing what I wanted to do with this particular song in order to sort of achieve, okay, this is the comeback song, in the sense that I wanted people who loved the band to hear what they loved about the band, but I also wanted to make sure that there were elements that were new and interesting and that felt like modern songwriting without being too modern that it sounded hokey. So with that particular song, I went, in a very, very defined, clear direction. But there's stuff on this record that is unapologetically new, like literally based on brand new songs that I am obsessed with, that are like rap songs, like things that people won't know that that's where I got it from. But like, I'm very fussy about sounding dated in a certain way. I don't mind sounding dated in a context of music that feels like it's coming from the roots of something of the past. But I don't like feeling dated in the songwriting. I don't want people to listen to the songs and be like, oh, this song should have come out 10 years ago. I want them to be like, oh, this song sounds like it came out today, but I recognize where it comes from.
Oh, I totally understand that as well, because there are times where you listen to songs, and I've even listened somewhere I thought, oh man, this would have been big if it came out like 2005, 2006, because it has that vibe, it has that emotion to it. But when I was listening to Intercorrupted, I never got that, and I think a good amount of it was, I'm gonna put it this way, and it goes all the way from the intro as well, but right before you get to that first verse, because when you listen to it, you have like some electronic kind of sound to it, but then you also have like some, like, I don't exactly know what instrument you use, but I think it was a string instrument, but it had that like very Arab or very Indian inspired kind of sound to it.
Sure. Well, that's the raw thing, right? So I have to always throw in some weird little quirky nod to the legacy of the band, which was always sort of like the Arabic music that I would throw into other stuff. There's a lot less of that on this record because, and it's interesting. I actually have to jump in a minute, but
Okay.
it's interesting that the newest System of a Down record that just came out, the two songs that just popped out, I went and I listened to them downstairs today, like really focused. And I've always loved the band. And I listened to it and I was like, I really like these songs, but there's so many things that they're doing that are sort of directly things that they have done already, that there's always that fine line between, well, is this them being them, or is this a gimmick that they use to brand their band? And for me personally, the Arabic thing and the raw stuff, as much as I know people really like it, I didn't want to do it a whole bunch on the album. There are moments, obviously Intercorrupted has a moment. There's a couple of other moments on different songs on the record that have it. But every time I sort of went in that space, I was like, this is so gimmicky. This is so like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm supposed to do some Arabic shit, even though I'm Puerto Rican and the band has nothing to do with Arab anything. I mean, even there's no ancient Egyptian music. Egypt was pre-Arabic anyway. But anyway, the moral of the story is, the album, I think, captures exactly what I wanted to sort of design from the ground up. So there's songs that are serious, there are songs that are beautiful, there are songs that are absolutely classic raw, and then there's songs that are completely new and based on things that the band has never done. But everybody in the band is all original, and it brings that color to the familiarity of Scooter's drumming and PJ's bass playing. All of that stuff is in every song, so you still get the band.
Understandable. Before you have to go, I'm just gonna go with this on Intercorrupted, because we were talking about, again, was just where it had that classic kind of raw feel to it, but you want to make sure that it wasn't feel like it was dated in terms of it should have come out 10 or 15 years ago. And again, like I was saying with the intro, like when you get that like Arab or Indian kind of inspiration in there with that string, you really get a feel of just that this is gonna be raw, this is gonna be uniquely them. But then right after that, you get this like heavier sense with a little bit more of a harder kind of drumming style, a little bit more of a bursting kind of style. And I really love the move on this one. I'm just taking a look at my note sheet because I made like a 3-page note sheet for the song. That's how I'm kind of turning my head. But I was like, we get this feeling that we were being thrown right into the foray of the song with a mixture of like a lighter sound, then like a more rapid, heavy sound right after it. And that rapid, heavy sound, it makes it feel like it should have come out like right around this time. So I love the move on that one. I love the way it transitions right from that part to the next. And then how the song builds up as like more of a story, because you kind of start out with kind of drawn back and then you kind of build it up, pull it back, build it up. And then when you get to like the little bit of a breakdown and a bridge, ooh, that's really where it hits. I even saw a couple of comments on the YouTube video where it's like, oh my God, Ra is back. And people are just absolutely loving this song. And it was a lot of the stuff that we were just talking about where it does feel like a Ra song, but it doesn't feel like you guys are just kind of doing the same thing you guys always did. It's the core is there, but you're adding so much more to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm showing off a little bit. I'm trying to show off, the last 12 years of writing for other people, and I think the songs that I've written for other people that have been successful, I've learned lessons from. And I've been able to sort of take those things and put them into my toolbox and be like, ooh, when I get to do something special, I'm going to yank this out of the toolbox and start, getting the ball rolling. And not, on that note also, the album will have some features on it. So because I'm so, lucky to be able to work with a lot of cool people, I'm in the process of locking down some really cool features that are going to, I think people are going to be very surprised who's on the album singing with me. So it'll be cool.
I'm hoping to have a point where all of a sudden be looking at that album and all of a sudden see who's featured on there. I'm going to hear it and just have my jaw drop to the floor. Like, again, like with what happened with Bring Me the Horizons album, I'm hoping for that exact same kind of feel.
Yeah, there's at least 2 songs that I know for sure that I'm pretty sure you're going to have that vibe.
I cannot wait. So that, I mean, Can March come yet? I mean, I'll pass through the rest of the winter. I'll pass over my birthday. I'll pass over Thanksgiving and Christmas. Can we just get to the album release on this? Cause I kind of want to hear the whole thing, man.
Well, I gotta finish it first, but yeah, we'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen. And before you, because I know you say you got to bounce real quick. So before you get to go, I'll give you the last words on this to kind of just really say what you want to say, plug what you got to plug, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to say. The floor is yours.
Cool. So yeah, if you're looking for us and you have no idea how to find us, the best place to go is rawband.net. That's the easiest one because you can get your email logged in there. You can go to our Facebook page. You can go to Instagram, do whatever you want to do from that page. Go to our YouTube page. It's all immediately at rawband.net. And as far as, listening to us, one of the things that is tricky because the name of the band is Raw, it's hard to find us on Spotify. Because just RA is a hard word. It's just too small for algorithms. So one of the things we did, one of the things that naming the song Intercorrupted actually helps is the fact that there is no other song called Intercorrupted. There's no band called Intercorrupted because it's not a real word. So if you want to find us 100% on Spotify, you can search Intercorrupted or you can search Raw Intercorrupted and you will always find us. That said, if you find us and you want to stay connected and know what we're doing, you got to hit that follow button. If you click on follow, then you'll be able to find us every time you search us. So it's almost a weird thing to have to teach people because in the old days, having a name like Rob was a huge advantage because a lot of bands had a lot of letters and all this other stuff. And if you saw us on a poster, our letters were always huge. But now with algorithms, you put in Raw 9 out of 10 times you get a website for rheumatoid arthritis. So that's where we're at right now. But yeah, that's it. Rawband.net. Just come and say hi. We're always down to talk and chat.
Or if you're on Spotify, you just search up Rob and you put in the search bar. Well, for me at least, the first thing that comes up is Rammstein. So I totally understand where you're coming from. However, I'm going to double down on that even and make it easier for everybody because when it comes to finding Raw anywhere in terms of their website, in terms of their merch, anywhere, social media, anywhere you can stream it, you can also take a look at the description of the podcast on YouTube, Spotify Podcast, Google Play, iHeartRadio. I'm going to have all the links for them in there. So it's going to be a one click, one tap away kind of thing and make it as easy as possible on you guys. Just, again, easy, convenience. That's the name of the game for this.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me, dude. It was a great time.
Thanks for being on, Sahaj. And I was absolutely blown away by this podcast. I mean, for first 45 minutes, I'm just sitting here listening to you talk. I'm just like, this is absolutely incredible. I don't want him to stop.
All good, dude. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate that.
I cannot wait for the album to come out. I can't wait to listen to more of this stuff. And well, once concerts resume and once all this stuff, COVID goes away and you start touring, come back to Milwaukee and come to the rave because
yeah, we'll be there for sure.
Because if you like to drink, first round's on me.
All right, we'll make it happen. Definitely, I love it. Thank you so much.
All right, so on that note, I cannot say goodbye because now I got plans to buy you a drink the first time I see you play live. So can't end with a goodbye, man. With a see you later.
Yeah, dude. See you soon.
See you soon. Well, folks, that was my review with Sahaj from the band Ra. And again, if you guys noticed, through the first 45 minutes. Sahaj talked a lot, but I wanted that to happen because if you saw my face, I was just enamored by everything that was being said. I was just trying to take it all in. There was so much to listen and so much to hear about, and I couldn't help it, guys. I mean, I was absolutely blown away by this whole entire thing. So again, I want to thank Sahaj for being on the Chord Progression podcast. I cannot wait for the Intercorrupted album to come out on March 19th, 2021. I cannot wait to talk to Sahaj about this whole entire album when it drops. Cannot wait to see what happens, and hopefully concerts get back again soon because I want to see them play live so badly. So I hope you guys feel the same way. That's going to be for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching, listening to the Chord Progression podcast. But MSOTD rocks where rock and metal thrive. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of these episodes of the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Oh.